There's a certain kind of silence in Foxboro that doesn't scare you, but it does make your chest tighten a little. Kayshon Boutte coming back for mandatory minicamp right as this wide receiver room has gotten more crowded, more expensive, and a whole lot more competitive. After A.J. Brown arrived, every rep starts to feel like a message. Every absence becomes something people read into, and every conversation with Vrabel carries more weight. Drop a like, subscribe, and let's really feel what this return could change for the future of the Patriots offense. The detail that shifts the whole temperature here is that Boutte is not trying to disappear. He stayed away from the voluntary program, yes, and of course that created noise. Because when a receiver who had been building chemistry with Drake Maye goes quiet right when the position gets crowded, Patriots fans are going to notice. But now he told WBZ's Aaron Parsegian in Franklin that his plan is to be there on day one of mandatory minicamp. And to me, that is not just a small note. That is an answer with cleats actually touching the ground. Because Boutte is walking into this minicamp with absolutely no comfort. A.J. Brown just arrived in a trade from Philadelphia. Romeo Doubs was signed in free agency. Mac Hollins is still there. Demario Douglas has a role. Kyle Williams is fighting too. So the math gets uncomfortable fast. Somebody is going to lose ground. And when a report came out saying Boutte might be interested in a trade, a lot of people started writing the goodbye before even seeing him compete in this new setup. But football is not some cold spreadsheet. Boutte was a 6th-round pick. He had to survive without any red carpet being rolled out for him. And last season, he gave you 33 catches, 551 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That is not empty production. That is a receiver who found timing with Drake Maye, showed up in the red zone, and proved he can be more than just another name sitting near the bottom of the roster. And for a team trying to speed up this offense, you do not throw away real chemistry like it is leftover market inventory. Mike Vrabel's words help put this whole case in the proper place. He said he has a lot of respect for Kayshon, mentioned his maturity, his growth, his work with Todd Downing, and called the communication during his absence positive. That kind of line does not guarantee a roster spot, but it also does not sound like a door getting slammed shut. Vrabel seems to be saying, "We know what is happening, we have talked through it, and now the field gets to decide." And that is where Boutte has to turn every doubt into discomfort for everybody else. He cannot just ask for patience. He cannot live forever off last year's connection. With Brown at the top of the room, the Patriots are no longer begging for somebody who simply functions. The standard has gone up. If Boutte wants to stay in Foxboro, he has to show up from June 9 to June 11 like a player who understands the threat and actually welcomes the fight. Because maybe this is the first real emotional test of this new offense. Finding out who still belongs when the talent rises and the space gets tighter. There are things opposing fan bases try to rationalize because it hurts less than admitting what is obvious. And part of Philadelphia's reaction to A.J. Brown being on the Patriots has that exact smell. Suddenly the guy who was WR1, who changed coverages, who pulled defensive attention, who just had another season over 1,000 yards, is disposable to a lot of people. Now the knee is the concern. Now age is the problem. Now everybody supposedly knew it was better to move on. Yeah, sure. Very convenient to discover all of that after he puts on a different jersey. And Brown did not need some long speech to answer it. When they asked how much he had left in the tank, he simply said, "You'll see." Short, dry, perfect. Because that kind of line does not need applause at the microphone. It needs Sundays. It needs a corner trying to play him one-on-one. It needs Drake Maye releasing the ball on time and a defense realizing a second too late that New England finally has a receiver who forces the other side to change the plan. That is the part so many people outside Foxboro keep trying to ignore. The Patriots did not bring in Brown just to win June headlines. They brought him in because Drake Maye needed a presence that could lift the entire offense. A true number one does not only help when he catches the ball, he opens space for the slot. He changes the safety's posture. He turns third down into a physical fight. He gives the quarterback an answer when the play breaks down and the clock starts squeezing. That does not fully show up on a stat sheet, but it absolutely shows up in the defense's fear. And while some Eagles fans are acting relieved, the field is already handing out little signals. The report mentioned that Jalen Hurts' first pass in practice after the trade was intercepted. That does not define a season. Nobody needs to pretend it does. But symbolically, for a team that just lost a target that big, it carries some weight. Brown was a layer of protection for that offense. In New England, he becomes a layer of possibility. The question I keep coming back to is different. If Maye was already MVP runner-up last year without A.J. Brown, what is the ceiling now with a receiver like this next to him? Because the motivation is already there. The confidence already came out in front of the cameras. And if Philadelphia wants to turn missing him into criticism, that is their problem. In Foxboro, we know how to recognize a player arriving with wounded pride, elite talent, and something to prove. That usually becomes dangerous. Really dangerous. Not every major piece of news sounds like a packed stadium. Sometimes it comes from a player speaking at a youth camp in Rhode Island, with a sleeve on his leg, his family nearby, and a sentence that shows just how much being away from the game can hit an athlete's mind. Marcellas Dial lost the 2025 season before the first snap because of a torn ACL. For a young corner, a sixth-round pick in 2024, who is trying to build a role on defense and special teams, that is a brutal blow. It is not just the bench. It is not just a smaller rotation. It is watching an entire season pass without being able to step into it. That is why his update matters. Dial told Patriots on SI he would not say he is 100% right now, but he believes that when camp comes around, he will be more than 100%. The part that hits me is when he says the knee does not hurt, that he feels no pain doing anything, and that he could be competing right now, but he is being limited for safety. That is the kind of care a team has to take with a player coming back from a serious injury. It is not a lack of desire, it is management. It is understanding that June is not worth a setback. The Patriots need him in July, August, September, and especially when depth starts separating a real roster from a patched-up one. Because Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, and Marcus Jones formed a very strong trio last year. That covered a lot. But no smart team goes through a season believing three corners will solve everything by themselves. Dial had a path to being useful as a gunner and a depth option before the injury. And on a team led by Mike Vrabel, a player who contributes on special teams is not some decorative detail. It is part of the identity. Field position, coverage, discipline, energy. Those hidden battles change games. His story also shows a side that fans do not always get to see. Dial said that early on he wondered if he would ever be the same, if he would ever feel good again. That is real. An injury that serious does not only test a ligament, it tests patience, confidence, routine, and pride. And when he talks about his wife, his family, and needing to be strong even when he could not be strong for himself, you can feel that his return is not only physical, it is emotional. So I look at Dial as one of those quiet bets that could matter a lot in the summer. He does not need to come back promising to be a star. He needs to be healthy, regain explosiveness, earn reps, and remind the coaching staff that he can still help. If he does that, the Patriots gain something that will not dominate headlines, but can absolutely show up in December. Living depth, a hungry player, and somebody who learned through pain what every snap is worth. Charles Woods is the kind of name a lot of people skim past on the roster, and honestly, I get it. When you have Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, and Marcus Jones forming one of the best cornerback trios in the league, your eyes naturally go straight to the top. But an NFL season never rewards only the top of the roster. It tests the bottom. It asks who steps in when somebody takes a hit, who plays special teams without ending up on the highlight, who survives a defensive series in some strange moment of the game. That is where Woods starts to get interesting. He came to the Patriots as a late summer waiver claim and ended up living in a very specific role: emergency cornerback and part-time special teamer. It is not glamorous. It does not sell jerseys. But that kind of player helps a coaching staff breathe when the main plan needs a patch for a few snaps. And for New England, after leaning so heavily on the durability and quality of its top three corners in 2025, this conversation needs to happen before it turns into a problem. Woods' path also fits that fight for the margins. He was not a recruiting star. He came out of Kimball High School in Dallas, even after being a multi-purpose weapon with 16 touchdowns as a senior, and had to carve his way through Illinois State, West Virginia, and SMU. At West Virginia, he showed playmaking ability with takeaways, but a leg injury cut into his momentum. At SMU, he came back, started 14 games, and earned third-team All-ACC honors. Still, he went undrafted. He entered the NFL with the Rams, played mostly on special teams, got released, and then landed in New England. That resume does not scream promise, it whispers resilience, and sometimes that is exactly the kind of piece Vrabel wants to see in the summer. Somebody who already understands nothing will be handed over, that every practice snap can become an argument, that every punt coverage rep can decide whether you stick. Woods is 26 at the start of the season, 5'10", 185 pounds. Not a testing monster athletically, but he has real game experience and 31 regular season and playoff appearances between defense and special teams. So the question for Patriots Nation is simple. Would you rather bet on a more athletic, inexperienced backup, or someone like Woods, who may not jump off the page, but already knows the rhythm of the league and can survive in multiple roles? To me, that is the kind of fight that shapes a competitive roster. It is not only about finding stars, it is about choosing players 45 through 53 with intelligence. Because when December gets cold in Foxboro, depth stops being a detail and becomes protection for the dream of the season. I will defend one thing without sitting on the fence. These Patriots need to stop treating internal competition like a threat and start seeing it as the sign of a serious team. If Boutte wants space, prove it. If Brown arrived with critics talking about age and his knee, even better, because motivated elite players change the whole building. If Dial comes back hungry after a brutal injury, give him the chance to push the depth higher. And if Woods is fighting for the final part of the roster, let the best contributor win. Foxboro does not need comfort. It needs a higher standard. Comment, subscribe to the channel, and let's defend this new phase together.